Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas, everybody. It's New Year's. It's Christmas Eve. It's early in the day on the West Coast. It's midday on the East Coast. Who knows what time it is in Europe? But we're here for our annual look back, look forward. And we're going to get into it right after this. Merry Christmas, Martin.
Merry Christmas, Scott. I like the new look of that intro piece that you put together. That's really sweet.
Thank you. And I did it just for you before Christmas as a Christmas gift.
Gratitude abounds.
Weeks and weeks and weeks of editing and learning. I had to learn all the music, all the instruments, in order to be able to play the background music.
Yeah.
So, Martin, we spend a lot of time talking about health, about, things that we can eat and mental things that we can do, emotional things that we can do.
Yeah.
We rarely spend any time on the stars and the moons and the impacts that have the planets that have on our life, except usually for this look forward, look back that we do every year.
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
why don't we talk a little bit about the past year and actually like the past 16 years maybe, and what that cycle was and what we saw happening in the last almost 20 years and what we see coming, or what the astrology says is going to be coming in the next little while. See what happens.
Yep. Yes, indeed. This is the time to review. Here's something really interesting. Astrology, I'm not really interested in catching every little thing, as the planets move day to day, minute to minute. I'm not too interested in that. But the outer planets, they actually create movements. They actually affect us here in large scale, long-term things. And we have had, we were looking at Pluto, and Pluto is the planet of rebirth, of reconfiguration, of renewal. Pluto's energy is such that it burns down everything. It's sort of like burning down the barn so you can find all the nails that you used so you can go and move and build a new one somewhere else. Like it's a serious burn down. Sitting in ashes looking for diamonds. It's that sort of energy of really bringing it down. So the Pluto in Capricorn ended on November 19, 2024, just a month ago. And we are now firmly in Pluto in Aquarius, and we'll talk about that. But I would like to review what the prediction for Pluto in Capricorn was. It started in about 2008, right? And here's what we have. Corrupting influence of power, real powers behind the throne, that which will be renewed. Pluto demands that we reform and change our approach. If we don't, we crash. So Pluto in Capricorn is testing the foundations of our power structures to see if they're built in alignment with the raw laws of deeper reality. So anything that's built on lies, deception, delusion, egotism, all that will be burned through, transformed.
Would this apply also to the individuals whose lives are built on lies?
Oh yeah, we live through the period. It affects us just as it affects us, all of us individually, and then collectively it's projecting through our entire society.
Because there's been a significant change in,
Oh, yeah.
I'll just say censorship in the
Yep.
last little while, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah. Well, while this is not the end of the world, it is the breakdown of trust in government and disillusionment with authority.
yeah,
This
there's
was written
huge.
this was written at the beginning of it, right? Like, this is stuff. By the way, I want to acknowledge Jessica Davidson. She's an awesome astrologer, and I have looked at her work for years, and she deserves, well, if you're into it, go find her website, jessicadavidson.co.uk, and spend $10 on her, just like I do, to appreciate the work that she's done. She's just phenomenal. Anyway, here's a line from her work. Pluto in Capricorn is telling us it's time for all individuals to step up and take responsibility for themselves as global citizens. Did we? Some of us did, right?
Yeah. And I can't help feel that the consequences for not doing it were severe, not severe by some outside force like the police arresting you or something like that, but in terms of like excess deaths that have been going on.
Yeah. Well, let's make it personal. Pluto in Capricorn is about how you, each one of us, use your power and the inner sense of responsibility for yourself, as in the agency, right? Am I the author of my life, or am I just buffeted by winds of change?
Right.
We can transmute pain into wisdom. How's that for a line?
Transmute pain into wisdom. Yes.
Right? I mean,
boy, there's so many people that aren't doing that.
Yeah, we have learned so much through these last 4 years. This COVID episode was just such a learning opportunity. You may undergo the slow death of the ego or your false self and experience a psychological and emotional rebirth. How many of us have had our nuts in a vice and finally have come on the other side, realizing that we have to stand for something?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there are so many people that are speaking out and researching stuff and telling their friends, vote for this mayor. I mean, don't vote for the city councilor. Don't vote for the school board person. It's amazing the change, the activity, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's because they realized we abdicated our responsibilities. And because of that, there was a lot of things happening in the schools, in the cities, in the state, and in the country people didn't like.
Step up. Here's another line from Jessica. Pluto in Capricorn was encouraging you to redefine your relationship with authority, not just with those in power over you, but your own inner authority. It may be time to accept your own power. Accept your own power. And do what you can to serve humanity at this critical time. Okay, so thoughts. These things that we had to contemplate over the last 18, 16 years. How do you take responsibility for yourself? Are you a leader or a follower? Do you allow yourself to be herded like a sheep by those in power? Can you learn to become more self-sufficient? Are you aligned with your true moral compass within? How solid is the ground on which you have built your life structure?
Right. What comes up for me, Martin, as you're talking is the power of no. Like, no, I'm not doing that. Right.
Yep.
And we've seen lots of protests, large protests, that sort of thing. But what came up for me was I was in a hotel in Medellin, Colombia,
Yeah.
And it was a really funky hotel. But the room that I was in, the air conditioning didn't work. Now, I don't know how. I maybe it didn't work before I moved in and they knew, but they gave me this room. It wasn't cold, hot. So, I mean, I didn't need the air conditioning, but they came in, they said, the air conditioning's not working. We're going to move you to another room, just as funky, like basically one down the hall. And so I moved in and I unpacked everything. And then at 10 o'clock at night, this guy knocks on my door, and he's the receptionist downstairs, and he says, "Oh, you're in here." And I go, "Yeah, they moved me in here." He says, "Well, you have to go back because I guess they didn't change booking or whatever it was. So the result was someone else came in late and booked that room." So I'm looking at him. It's 10:30 at night. I'm tired. I have unpacked everything. And I just said, no. He looks at me. I says, "No, they moved me in here. It's late. Put him in that room." To my shock and amazement, I was expecting it like a fight. He just said, "Okay." And he left.
Yeah.
And I think that we are so conflict averse for some reason. Right. Yeah, we just don't stand up, right? And I thought, well, really like that.
Well, there are two personality styles, right? To get along type and the I'm right, you're not. Right. So there are some of us are internally referencing, others are externally referencing. And the externally referencing person will say, "Well, what do you think?" The internally referencing person will say, "Here's how we're going to do it." Right? He's not asking what you think. He already knows what he wants to do.
Right.
So there's the balance of it, right? Sometimes we need to play along to get along. Sometimes not so much. Right. And I think it was just perfectly fine. I mean, the logical conclusion was, look, you have a room, just not this one.
That's right. Yeah. And I think that we need to just stand up and say no more often, right? Like there was a fellow whose child was not allowed to go to school unless they had the vaccination.
Yep.
And so he talked to the school, and everything that they told him was like, no, there's no way he can come to school. And the man said, "Well, no, my son's coming to school." And then then he got off the phone with the principal. He did a little research, and he discovered that there was an exemption form that you could fill out. It was masks. Sorry, you have to wear a mask at school, not the vaccine. And so he finds this form, and he calls the school up, and he says, "I understand there's this mask exemption form." And they go, "Oh, yeah." Like they could have told him, right? But they knew. But they don't want the exception. Yeah. They didn't want the exception, right? Because what would that do to everybody else? So they said, yeah. So they sent him the form, emailed him the form, and then he emailed it to 500 parents of the school.
Right.
Almost nobody in that school wore a mask, right? Because they all showed up with this piece. The kids showed up with this piece of paper, no mask, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's
just a loophole.
I find it just that's standing up to authority, right? But the authority is abused when this is the way it is. When the fact is there are options, right? The principal said, "Listen, we have an exemption form if you want to fill it out," blah, blah, blah. But their bureaucratic mind was, we were told masks, and we're going to make sure you wear those masks. And that, I think, is a huge problem with authority, right? But if you don't want to do it, just say no.
Right. So, again, just reflecting on the last 16 years. The social structures we have built are collapsing because they're based on values and ideas that no longer work for the mass of humanity. So now there was one other powerful alignment, Uranus-Pluto square, and that coincided with the 2008. I don't know if you remember, back in 2008, that's when this whole thing kicked off, and it was amplified by this energy of Uranus-Pluto square, and we had the financial crisis.
Yeah, we had the financial collapse in the United States.
That was the kickoff of the Pluto in Capricorn. Yeah, and the greatest peak of that period was Saturn-Pluto alignment, the conjunction, and that happened in January of 2020. Do you remember January 2020?
I do. I had a really bad cold that didn't seem to go away.
Yeah, the madness kicked off. And then finally, to the end, or towards the end, now nearing 2024, Saturn was aligning with Uranus, which is a upset. Well, okay, there was this one period was Pluto return, which is soul searching for America. So the Pluto return, 22, 23, an opportunity to reaffirm the values of the Constitution and apply them to all peoples. Can you believe that this was written in 2008? Pluto return 22, 23 will be an opportunity to reaffirm the values of the Constitution in the United States and apply them to all peoples, no matter their color, gender, religion, or wealth.
So that was an opportunity. Do you think that it was realized?
Well, I think yes. I think the entire collapse of the establishment hold on the government and the election of this bunch of renegades, just a bunch of misfits, all rejects, right? Like the Democrat Party, the one that's currently held by the establishment, the deep state, the big corporations, those are their buddies. All of the rejects, they rejected Tulsi Gabbard, they rejected Robert Kennedy, they rejected, I don't know, a whole bunch of other names that I can't recall on the spot. They all banded together. It's almost like Star Wars and the ragtag bunch of rebels that are just taking down the empire. That's what that felt like to me. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, I'm just saying this to establish that Pluto in Capricorn was predictable, predicted, and written out, and we could have read these lines back in 2008 and wonder what that's going to mean in reality. Well, the reality is that Pluto is demanding that we reform and change our approach. If we don't, we crash.
And that's definitely the platform of the incoming president and Congress and Senate.
Yep.
Is we need to everything that's been happening is been not good.
Yeah.
And they're going to rip it all apart.
So
the draining of the swamp that they talked about for.
Yeah, it's happening. So listen to this. So Pluto is now in Aquarius and will be there until 2044. So the next 20 years. Okay. Last time this happened, it was in 1777 to 1797.
Wow. So it takes a long time to rotate through the.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 248 years. So we had Catherine the Great in Russia doing reformations or reforms. America happened. What happened in the 1770 something, right?
Right.
In 76,
War of Independence.
In 76, we had the independence declared, but then in 83 we have the war, and then the Treaty of Versailles, the Constitution, Bill of Rights. All of that happened under that influence.
The French Revolution occurred then too, didn't it?
Yeah, right. 1789, July 14, Bastille Day. Right?
Yep.
And there was a whole bunch of revolutionary stuff taken fact, well, I'll explain
Well, the
that. in a
power
second.
was going back to the people, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they hung or they guillotined the King
Yeah.
of France,
Yeah, that's right. But there was more,
Robespierre.
right? Like revolutionary things in technology too taking place. So here's what we have. Here are the words looking forward into the next 20 years. The need of our society to reform by introducing new ideas and working together in friendship to create a greater freedom. Aquarius takes an objective view so we can take new theories and plans and create change.
Mm.
Now, unfortunately, not all these ideas will be correct. So groupthink and fanaticism is a possible downside of it. And we're still seeing that. There are a whole bunch of people who have ideas of the collectivist sort, or who have ideas of the transhumanist sort, where they want to merge humans with technology. That's one group. And the other group.
So,
wants
Martin,
to,
let me interrupt you for a second, because you have experience of communism.
Yes, I
and
do.
I think
Internet.
I totally agree that there's definitely a strong fringe minority, which is quoting the Prime Minister of Canada, left wing, that
Yep.
really wants hard on Chinese communism to take over. So can you talk for a few minutes about your experience of communism and what it was like living
Yeah.
under communism?
Yeah. I was born in Czechoslovakia in 1952. 4 years prior to that, in 1948, there was a coup where the Communist Party took government. It was supported by Russia, the Soviet Union then, and all of a sudden you had communists in power. Almost immediately, they started cleansing the party, and they created a whole bunch of judicial processes. They were actually similar to what happened in the United States during the days of McCarthyism, the un-American activities. Well, back there in Europe, people were chased and hounded for activities that would be counter the rule of the worker class. Anyway, I was born into this madness and grew up in a society where a lie was perpetrated on everyone. We would be taught in the school. I went all the way to university, and I do have a board exam, meaning that I was there in front of 3 educated professor types, and I was supposed to advance or show how good I was at understanding. And the subject was Marxist-Leninist doctrine. So I actually have a state board exam in that. So in studying for that, I had to read the information, Karl Marx, the Capital, the Russian Lenin, Stalin, all of that sort of stuff. Here's the bottom of it. I knew I was lying when I was saying the things that I was saying. The commission knew that I was lying. I knew that they knew I was lying. They knew that I knew that they knew they were lying. It was just a charade. We were just standing up there and quoting the verse and chapter of this bullshit story that was put forward. Anyway, all it was a violent repression of people's freedom. That's all it was. We were living in an open air prison. Eventually, in 1976, together with some friends, I found a way to fool the system and get out. I applied in Austria for asylum under the United Nations Charter, and I ended up in Canada soon thereafter in search for freedom, because I knew that if I stayed there, I would not be able to keep my mouth shut, and somebody would inform on me I mean, it was very common. Probably 1 in 4 people in that country was an informant. So you never knew when you opened your mouth,
Wow.
like whether somebody was going to write that down, take it to the whatever, and then when you apply for a job or apply for an advancement or something like that, they will haul out your papers and say, well, Mr. Pytela, you have back in September of 1974 at a party made a joke about something, and that shows that you are completely not dedicated and devoted to the rule of the Communist Party over this country. We cannot advance you.
Well, that sounds like the people that turned in their friends who were partying too hard or weren't 6 feet apart or went to an empty beach.
Yeah, like that. Or this guy, he is not wearing his mask correctly.
Right.
I mean, I watched
Total control.
people beat one another up when somebody who refused to put the mask on wanted to enter a grocery store.
Yeah.
I mean, there were people so convinced, they were so righteous about their need to protect everyone from this horrendous danger, which
I have a slightly different theory about that, Martin. I think that the majority of people live their lives being told what to do, or if they are in a position where they interact with the public, they have to act within a very narrow range. You know, the customer is not pleasant to them, they still have to smile, that sort of thing. And what COVID did was give people permission to be assholes. To be quite frank, right? Like we have
power.
Yeah. Power, but they never got a chance to exercise that power. They never had any control. Now all of a sudden they did, right? And like if you were a cashier and a black man went up and you were not black, and a black man went up, you had to check him through, right? But if anybody walked up to you and they weren't wearing their mask, you could refuse to serve them. And I've seen examples of like videos of that where, someone walks up, they're not wearing a mask. The cashier calls the supervisor calls, checks them out. And the cashier goes 20 feet away. We would have called it racism if it was about color, but because it was about a mask, it seemed to be okay. And it was just, and of course, everyone believes, oh, this is really terrible because the mass media is telling you like this is awful. And it doesn't matter that 4 years later, Fauci goes on, he was in front of the Congress committee of something, says, well, we just thought it was a good idea to wear a mask. We didn't know, we didn't check any. And I did, when I heard about the mask, I went to the Lancet website, which is where lots of studies are published. And I did a search on masks and I found lots of studies, but I only looked at one study a year because I'm not going to spend weeks going through all this stuff. There was not one study that said wearing a mask was good. In fact, there was one study that said, because the people always say, well, what about surgeons and people in hospitals? They don't wear the mask to prevent bacteria or something getting into their lungs. They wear it more so that they don't actually accidentally drool and drop a bunch of their saliva onto a heart.
That's exactly correct. You want to keep the operation site sterile and not contaminated, and you're protecting the other side. So that was the message. You're not wearing the mask to protect yourself. You're wearing the mask to protect the other people. But even that is total bullshit because
it is.
The particle size that gets through.
Well, every study that looked at they did a study where they put people into a room who had some disease that they could test for, right? Like we can test for this microbe, and they put them in a room. They closed the door beside the room beside it. They closed the corridor. Then they had the person with a mask walk out of the room, down the corridor, and through the door.
Yeah.
Then they went into the other closed room to test for this stuff, and they found it everywhere, like almost instantaneously, right?
Of course.
So there was no way that that a mask would protect anybody. And anyway,
I was going to say something, which is this, Scott, the mask. It cannot trap the particle size that you're trying to catch. It's sort of like trying to block mosquitoes with chicken wire fence.
Mm-hmm.
The particle size and the openings in the mesh just do not match. It was total nonsense. We know it. They knew it, and they pushed it anyway.
Yeah,
and I think it was a form of showing who is willing to put the mask on and who's going to fight it.
Yeah, there's definitely a schism in the world now between people that are like absolutely adamant they're not going to do anything that the government says regarding health, and
the rebels have been activated.
Yeah, and the people that are on the fence, a certain percentage of them have dropped off on either side, right? Depending on whatever. So
so let me just read a couple of more sentences about what's coming. Okay. When Pluto enters Aquarius, we're in it now for the next 20 years. We can expect the desire for reform and revolution to grow, especially in the area of science and technology and how society is organized. But first, all the problems with these things will have to come to the surface. We have to become aware of what needs to be changed and why before we can figure out what to do about it. So this here process, as we're just going through, just reflecting on the nonsense that we've gone through, right? This has to happen in pretty much every area of what we do, because we need to figure out what it actually means to be human and how to live together on this planet without fighting over everything. Aquarius, and we're in it, is future oriented and wants to make society and the future a better place. All right. We will be radically transformed.
Well, the AI and the ability to put cameras everywhere, it's absolutely amazing.
Yep, that's the black side of it.
Here's a question I want you to check on.
Yeah. Have we lost connection?
No, I'm just putting you in the spotlight, Martin.
Okay, try me. What?
So here's a question from Stephanie. Can you ask Martin about the info? I don't know what info she sent. There's a number of bills that the Liberal Party in Canada is trying to pass, which would make it legal to say certain things on the internet and that sort of stuff. And he also already emergency powers act or whatever it was to take out the convoy, the trucker convoy a couple years.
Yeah.
And what can Canada, we do?
Yeah, Canada's in trouble because Canada has on its books this Emergency Powers Act that the government can activate. And he's done it. Trudeau's done it. All he had to do is sit down with the protesters and treat them like humans. All he needed to do is just say, okay, I see you have a concern. Instead, he spat in their face and said, you're scum. And declared the law.
He put people in jail for, it's been 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah. He deplatformed a whole bunch of people. I mean, it was amazing. The government, with its powers enacted, was able to take away your bank account. So no money. They canceled your truck's insurance. You have no insurance on the truck. If you had a loan on it and got called and so on. Like, it was economic assassination of the people. And
Right.
even folks who sent $20 to the cause had their accounts
Had the banks
garnished or
closed.
stopped or whatever.
Yeah.
It was
Frozen,
dramatic.
actually.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, Trudeau is about to pay the price for this hubris, and for that, he's about to be sent. Well, he's already. I mean, he's a dead tree standing in the forest, waiting for someone to push it over.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
So
over
what
for
can
him.
you do? First thing you can do is write your MLA and your MP, and your
Right.
mayor. Like I think getting involved at the local level is really, really important. Find out what's
Yeah.
going on in the schools. There are
Yeah.
books in the elementary school libraries that are just horrific. You know,
Yep.
how to have anyway. I don't want to get into
That doesn't matter. No. Yeah. Okay. So, what can you do? Get vocal. You know, talk to your neighbors, talk to your family, find people who resonate with your ideas, and it will happen. I mean, it's a slow moving thing. This representative democracy is a slow moving train, but it will come to a station at some point. I mean,
Yep. There was a law that it was like the day before Christmas, the Congress tabled yet another 1,500-page bill and basically said, don't bother reading it. You need to vote or the government is going to go down and money, blah, blah, blah. And so they encouraged everybody to call their congressman and say, don't vote for this. We don't know what's in it. But it also was released, and there was thousands of people that were reading parts of it and then saying, this is what this part says. And they found pork barrel like crazy, $1 billion for this and $1 billion for that, and all like stupid things. And it got stopped. And then it went from 1,500 pages to 115 pages and got passed. So the idea of having these massive bills and then slipping in something on, page 3,241, paragraph 17 is hopefully over. And that's the way that it should be. Like when you're having a bill about garbage, there should be nothing in it about school, right?
Yeah, that's the whole thing. It should be that you no longer can do omnibus bills. Everything should be line item vote, right? You want this? Yes, no.
That's right.
Right.
And a lot of stuff won't make it through.
Everything, yeah. The truck is coming. Everything that's in it has to be approved. No.
Yeah.
No. And this is the power of no.
No, that's right. I'm not going to do that. And it's also the power of the people, right? Like they mobilized the people. The people said, hey, I'm not doing this. And you still have power when enough people say, like, oh, no, this isn't good. Don't forget, too, everybody multiplies anything that happens by 10. Like if one person calls, then they figure it's the same as 10. If 1,000 people call, they figure it's the same as 10,000. If 100,000 people call, it's like a million. And when it gets up into those numbers, oh dear, it's scary for the politicians.
Right. Stephanie just shared a YouTube link. I don't know. We can't really do that within this show, I don't think. So
No.
We'll have to look at it later. Yeah, press this. Well,
Thanks
we
for sharing,
can't do it
Stephanie.
right now. We're live on YouTube itself. So anyway, what I want to say is this. You, everyone, you have the power in your wallet. It's the money. How you spend the money is like oxygen to the economy. So whatever you buy, and replacement will be made. Because when you buy something, it's like a purchase order for the next one. So be careful with what you're buying. Get smart. Buy stuff that's worth having.
Yeah. Pardon me. The other side to that is, in the whole COVID thing, it really looked like it was an attack on small business, because you could go into Walmart and you could go into Costco, but you couldn't go into the little store next door. And so and of course, it's the almighty dollar and we have inflation. And I think this is part of the reason why. But I think you need to look at Costco and Walmart and say, what are alternatives? Like, are there farmer markets? Are there farms nearby where you could contact the farmer and say, listen, I want a side of beef, or I want to get your vegetables, and really work with those people, because you're going to get better quality food. First of all, it's not going to be like mass produced in food factories, right? Like, it's pretty scary the way that they slaughter animals, for example. And we keep hearing about it.
Yeah.
There was 3 cases of Ebola in a lettuce, and they call tons of lettuce.
Let me try and put the big picture back on. So this story from communist-ruled Czechoslovakia. The story there is that the means of production are owned by the state, by the government. And the state government equals the Communist Party at that point, too. So means of production, right? That would be the offices, the mines, the banks, the roads, everything. And the other way to get there is that it's called fascism or corporatism, and you get to the same place. But this time, the money owns the government. So in the Communist Party, government owns all the money and the means, and in the fascist corporatist style, the big money owns the government itself and controls everything. Right? Like right now, we have a system where a senator has to make a phone call asking for money so he can or she can be re-elected, fundraising for a political cause. So when they call me, because I'm the billionaire dude, I will ask, what have you done for me since the last time you called? And what are you promising to do for me from this payment? I mean, I don't even have to ask it. It's implied. It's known. I will not send you more money if you do not do my bidding. So there it is. It's the vote is for sale, and they tilt the playing field in favor of the big business. You just spoke about the big business being open and small business being shut down. That's the idea. Because when you take away the means of production from the small business, you make them slaves. Yeah.
So when government and big business merge, I don't know if that's the right word. Do we call that fascism?
That's by definition fascism or corporatism. Yeah.
Corporatism.
Yeah, same.
And then and it's kind of like this circle, and you go one way, and like capitalism, we should all be like companies and stuff. But then you go so far, and it's communism and fascism meet.
Yes,
really,
they do.
How much different is it?
Yeah. The whole idea is that the ones in power control big masses, and it becomes dictatorial and all of that. Germany,
dictatorial with the flavor of democracy, because every 4 years we ask you to vote. Right?
Well, yeah, sure. In Germany, in the 1930s, the party was called National Socialist Party, NSDAP, National Socialist German Workers' Party, Arbeiterspartei.
Right.
Yeah, so they were actually sounding like they're for the people, which they were. And then once they got in power, then they just, I don't know. Well, it went pretty bad, pretty quick. So, okay, let me go back to what's coming and why. Okay, I really want you to get this. This next 20 years is going to roll forward with increasing speed, but there definitely is the revelation. Here's a sentence. The technocratic view isn't going to survive much longer. It's already running up against natural limits, and over the coming decade, it will implode. Pluto in Aquarius is going to dredge up all the corruption in science to the surface and reveal the fantasy behind our technological obsession. It will also reveal the dark side of technology, wars fought through screens, drones, robots, biotech, DNA, all of that.
I saw a
It's
video the other day of a robot dog and everything that it could do. And the
Yep.
person that shared it said, just imagine this with 3 or 4 or 5 guns pointing in all directions as it roars through a crowd.
Yep.
I thought, oh my God.
Yeah.
Asimov had the 3 laws of robotics, which I wish that everyone involved with AI and robotics would adhere to.
Yes, it should be implemented, indeed.
But it's ignored.
Well, maybe not. There is a new guy in charge of AI and crypto. His name is David Sachs, and he is a wise man. He's been through the crucible, and it should be okay. So, not just dredging up useless old crap out of the systems, it will also see breakthroughs and new ideas in science. Like, we are in for fast advance over the next 20 years. We will probably see complete redefinition of physics. We will probably finally see the electrogravitic technologies reintroduced. We will stop being dependent on petrochemicals, carbon economy. There is infinite energy available in the universe. The free energy stuff, I would expect that under the influence of this next 20 years to be revealed, disclosed, and deployed. I really expect that. Also, here's an interesting line. Pluto in Aquarius means that power shifts to the people and society at large, rather than the small group that dominates from the top down.
That's very optimistic.
They won't give up their power
that
easily.
Might have sounded condescending. I didn't mean it. I meant like, I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah, but listen, they will not give up their power easily. That means things won't change unless we change.
Yeah.
And here's an
and I think
now hold on, Scott. There's a really important bit coming through. Revolution in politics. There's a really important bit coming, and that's Uranus, the planet that's just in from well, it's the planet of disruption, the planet of what shall we call it? Inventions, crashes, disturbance. But here's the important bit. It's coming on 8th of July this coming year, 2025. Okay, that's a really important kick that must be watched for. These first 6 months will be what's the word? Revolutionary. And then after that, it will be transformative. And it's going to be there for 7 years, from 2025 to 2033. So the first part of the 20 years.
Like what people are expecting with Trump when he takes over. There's a lot of disruption.
Well, listen to this one. Uranus represents the principle of revolution, freedom, and change, and the need for originality and independence from the old ways. Sudden and unexpected breakdowns and breakthroughs, flashes of insight, awakenings, rebellions, electrifying energy that speeds things up and creates excitement, restlessness, and plugging us into the universal mind, and stimulating innovation and brilliance. I mean, this is one of the most forward-thinking periods that we could possibly have, and it's upon us starting in July.
Right.
So,
well, I think the last 5 years set it up brilliantly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That burns through the old stuff. Now the power's shifting. And then now we're going to accelerate it with this revolutionary, revolutionary change. And this is in Gemini, which means that it will be changing the way we think, we communicate, we trade and transport goods, all of that sort of stuff. So,
Hmm.
yeah, technological innovations. That's what we'll have.
So, what's going to happen to the average human or the mass of humans as we go through this change? Are we going to see a breakdown of beliefs that people have held that have been false,
Yeah.
or a change
Yeah,
of
the
the
story.
mind?
Yeah, the story of Emperor's New Clothes will be replayed in so many ways. We need to be prepared, like the little child, to point at the emperor and saying, "But he has no clothes, but he is naked."
Yeah.
We have been
Yeah.
told these stories, sold these stories by people in power that have just described to us how finance works, how medicine works, how physics work, and so on. All of these things have been built on control and lies. And that balloon of hot air has been pricked. It's
So, what happens, Martin, to the people who are so deep into the cult of whatever it is that they believe that there's because I really firmly believe that brainwashing and manipulation is at a very high level by
yeah,
the elite,
yeah,
or
yeah,
the
yeah.
bad guys,
Mm,
and I've seen that where it doesn't matter what you say, they just spew out whatever was on CNN last night.
mhm.
As
Yeah, I
a
remember
report.
Mark Twain. I remember Mark Twain writing, maybe I got it wrong. Maybe it was Sinclair Lewis. Anyway, the story is, it's hard to convince a man that something is not true if believing it makes him dependent, or depends on him holding his job, how he makes his money.
Yeah. You
Right?
can't teach a man something that that he's paid not to know.
Yeah, that's a better way of saying it. I'm paraphrasing. I'm not remembering it clearly, but the whole idea is that some people will go to their grave believing what they've always believed.
Right.
Some others,
Like Paul Offit, he makes a fortune from his patents in vaccines. So
yeah,
there is absolutely no way that you're ever going to convince him that vaccines are bad, even though he has way better access to real data on all that stuff than we do. He's
yeah,
going to be like, no,
yeah,
it saves people, and
yeah,
it doesn't matter
yeah.
how
He's
many people
willing
you.
to, yeah, he's willing to kill thousands and maim millions with his
I actually was
conviction.
talking to a fellow who on the board of directors, a friend of mine, of a pharmaceutical company 10 or 20 years ago. And he said one of the things, they would have this drug and they would have trials, and then they would meet to see, like, do we apply to get this like out in the world or not?
Yeah.
And what they did is they said, well, 1 out of 3,000 people are going to die from it. Well, that's acceptable, a number of people that are going to die. Someone's like, what? He says, yeah. He says, a lot of the stuff you post is right on, Scott, because it's not, they know some people are going to work off. They know some people are going to die.
Yeah.
And the question is that acceptable? I would
Right.
think no, but
Well, we have
I
this
don't.
society where it's okay for 50,000 people a year to die in car accidents. That's in the United States, or 100,000 people to die of fentanyl overdose. We're living with it. We're
Yeah,
we're using cars. We could
I
do
know.
better. We could do better.
Well, yeah, and if it was a public discussion, right? Like, hey, we have this drug, it's going to save 95% of cancer patients, but we
Okay.
don't know if you're in the 95% or you're in the 5% that's just going to make it worse. So
Right.
then you can go to, then you could go to the person and say, this has a 95% chance of fixing you and a 5% chance of killing you. What do you want to do?
Yep.
Right? But they don't. They hide it behind, oh, no, it's not that. It was some other, it was a complication, a comorbidity, and they lie. And the result of this is that nobody can make a decision, right?
Right. And that's why I get into the car and drive to the store, or go visit my daughter willingly, because I'm thinking that the odds are in my favor. Yep.
And then you see
But
a car that was smashed, and you go, "Well, I'm good to go." There's the one out of 1,000 that was going to crash
yeah,
today.
and there could be a drunk driver that's going to hit me smack on somewhere in an intersection and make the rest of my life miserable.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so that what to do with it, right? Well, things will come out. A lot more stuff will come out. I mean, look, as provided the new administration does survive. I mean, honestly, I think CIA is trying their hardest, putting their best on the job to not let Kennedy and Trump and Musk and the rest of them to actually do what they are expected to do. Because CIA, after all, CIA is responsible for the death of John F. Kennedy and Robert F. Kennedy, his dad. He knows it.
Yep.
He said it.
Well, like you were talking about, things are changing, right? And evolution and everything else. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's also changing in the CIA, where it's like, well, we had a good run and this is not working. We need to do something else. I'm sure they were not impressed with President Biden and Vice President Harris and everything that's going on.
Oh, I think they liked them very much because they could do anything they wanted. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see, right? As I
We'll
used the
see.
metaphor, the balloon that's been filled with air has been pricked. The pressure is gone. I don't know what they'll do, but I don't think they'll go down quietly or without resistance. Expect resistance.
Well, when you threaten to fire 90% of the people in the government,
Yeah,
like he did at X, and nobody noticed, X got better, right?
it's working. Yeah. Well, yeah, that was a fluke, right? Like he really found something that was just bloated. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's found a second thing that's bloated, right?
Yeah, we'll see.
You know, I mean, there's tons of stories of people that, or government that city governments that just stop working, and everything is a lot better when they're not working than when they are working.
Right. Yeah, I had a philosophical idea, which was that the government people should be instructed to not write a new regulation, but instead be working on reducing and refining regulations. I think until it's down on 2 stone tablets and it's 10 points, I think we should force them to keep rewriting it and dropping the regulations. I mean, wouldn't it be nice?
I think
Wouldn't it be nice
laws.
if we stuck with just do unto others as you wish them to do unto you? Oh, so if you're going to screw somebody, we're going to screw you back. Right? The biblical eye for an eye.
That's one of the interesting things about traveling around the world, because I've been Ubers in a number of different countries. And in some countries, a red light is a suggestion. It's 2:00 in the afternoon. You come up to a red light. You look one way, you look the other way. There's nobody for a mile. Gets in this intersection and turns, right? It's like, why not? Right? Well, because too many people go too fast and have bad judgment. But in that environment, they're used to it. They know to look. And I mean, I don't think they're great drivers. They don't look like they're great drivers, but they're also, sometimes they're driving on the dotted line instead of in one of the lanes. Like, it's insane. You do see accidents, but you don't see any more accidents than you see here in Canada right now, right? So,
I'm not sure. I don't know what the rate of accident per mile traveled is in various countries. It would be a good study for sure.
Yeah. Well, driving here, there was an accident. So.
Right. I don't know. I would love to see the numbers, right? Like, it's, for example, we were recently hearing the numbers from from the health statistics. Like just last night, I watched a piece that was PBD, Patrick Ben David, was talking about the outcome of the health care system in the United States. It's the most expensive thing on the planet. Americans pay twice as much for healthcare, and their outcomes are in the bottom 20% of the countries. So you pay twice as much as anybody else, and you get results that are marginal. You get results similar to what Cuba gets. Oh, anyway, the whole problem, of course, we already know, is the entire healthcare system is based on a lie. The emperor has no clothes. We are treating metabolic disease as if it were a war injury. It's not.
Right. Okay, going back to car accidents, and in Canada in 2019, the number of motor vehicle fatalities was 1,762. It was down 9.1% from 2018, where it was 1,939. The number of serious injuries decreased from 8,900 in 2019, down 5.8% from 9,500 in 2018 So before COVID, it was dropping.
2019 was not COVID. 2020 was COVID.
I said before COVID, it was dropping.
Okay.
After
yes,
COVID, it went back up. And the part was because nobody was driving in 2020, May 2021. Like there were lockdowns.
Yeah,
and
there was
stuff,
full
right?
shutdown. Yeah.
So I looked at those numbers and I didn't want to bring them up because I think they were skewed. But before it was going, it wasn't a lot, it was going down. So then the question is 20,000 people dying a year in car accidents acceptable? Obviously it is.
Yeah, we're living with it.
If it was 200,000, then we would probably be banning cars.
Yeah, we'll see. Unattended cars are available.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's maybe coming. I don't know.
The Jetsons, we used to watch that on
Well, I tell you
in the 60s and 70s.
I tell you this, the electrogravitic technology exists. We don't need fossil fuel. Well, it's a bullshit anyway. It's not a fossil. Let's call it petrochemical. So anyway, we don't need those fuels, but we also don't need roads. We honestly could manage it, but we would have to have no personal driving. It would have to be remote control, because there's just no way that you can manage people 3D, 360-degree awareness. We don't have ability. There's no way that I can put grandma in a car that flies.
And fly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But with AI, that's definitely a problem that's easily solved.
Yeah. AI, internet-like, send a packet, it can work. Anyway, I think we've said enough, or at least I've said enough on the stuff that's coming in the revolution, right? Last time we had this revolutionary period of this Uranus in Gemini was 1941 to 49. We got the transistors, supersonic flight, hydraulic fracturing, as in fracking, holography, microwaves, cell phones, tape recorders. That all came in that.
World War II.
Yeah. Gandhi, Nuremberg trials, LSD, all kinds of stuff.
Yes. So we're in for an exciting 20 years.
Yeah. And the next 7, starting in July, open source technology, quantum computing, but also deep fakes, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You're not going to necessarily be able to believe your eyes anymore, because someone's going to make something that looks very real and is
Yeah.
totally fake.
Yeah. So I really think that we will see the free energy or decentralized networks. Goodbye, grid.
Well, the grid's falling apart. It just takes
Well,
a really good shot from the sun and it's gone. So
right, and
absolutely, we need
they
to.
are actually the control of the masses by the big business. So yeah, we should fight for saying goodbye to the grids. Yep. And strange enough, Mr. Musk is at the focal point of that. His
Yeah.
solar technology, his solar tiles for roofs of houses, his battery packs, all of that, all of that
And I was
technology.
thinking of Starlink too, right? He's got these things floating in the sky,
Yeah.
and so you don't need fiber optics.
Yep, the internet of direct from the satellite. Yeah. Now that is
Martin,
vulnerable to
you
it.
have
So
all of this stuff going through the air, all these waves.
yeah.
That's going to cause a problem.
Well, here's a line again from Jessica Davidson. Thank you very much for your writing. Uranus in Gemini indicates the potential for a massive awakening and shift in how we use our minds. We could see a radical overhaul of our thinking patterns and our understanding of consciousness itself. Uranus may help us break out of the matrix and get back in touch with the power of our real minds, not minds messed
Right.
with by technology. There you go.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
It's coming. We have the power and we have the stars on our side.
So it goes through my mind before, and we need to wrap this up. I know is some people are going to have a hard time with this change, and some people are going to embrace it.
Yep. Well, resistance is futile. You will be assimilated. That I don't mean it in the technical form of Borg. I mean it in the form of the reality shift is on the way. You can die fighting it or you can join it. It's a lot easier when you join it. And the movement is away from the power and toward the empowerment of the individual.
Right.
We have a chance.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. I'm Scott Paton. He's a Pytela coach at www.life-enthusiast.com. We're here to restore vitality to you and the planet. So join us every Thursday, 2:30 Eastern. For Jen says, thank you guys. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Jen. And
Merry Christmas to you all.
Yeah.
And happy Hanukkah to all of my compatriots.
Right. And 2:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific, Thursdays, where we always go live. Look forward to seeing you then. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.